Hi, everyone. Today, let's talk about home builder sentiment just for a little bit, and then we'll get straight to the charts, and then we'll go over my results for the day and a pretty rough trading session. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. Starting off with home builder sentiment today, we talked about this report coming out yesterday, and for the 12 straight months, it has been declining. So this is pretty rough. Obviously, the economy is pulling back. Interest rates are much higher for homes. People are not buying homes at the same rates, and definitely not at the same prices. You can see here about 62% of builders are using incentives to bolster sales, including providing mortgage rate buy downs, paying for points for buyers, and offering reduced prices. Single family home market dropped 2 points to 31 in December, and anything below 50 is considered pretty negative. The index stood at 84 in December of last year, and they do attribute some of this to the high interest rates, making it difficult to sell homes. I'm not going to go too deep into this because it doesn't affect the markets that much, but understand that the economy is definitely weakening, and the housing market is showing signs of that. Moving over to the charts, starting with the SPY, you can see we stopped right here, which is on this trend. It's basically the center line of this down move. Certainly should expect some bounce from here. It's kind of the vicinity we got to last time on this August move down, but we've been moving down quite a bit here, and we are getting pretty extended. Not quite overextended on the daily chart yet, but you can see on this August move, we didn't quite get extended before we had that first bounce either. Jumping down to the 4-hour, you can see we have been extended for the last 2 days. It seems like we have to bounce at some point, and this point of support seems like a reasonable spot. I'd be looking for a bounce back up into this resistance at 388, 387, somewhere in this zone. Moving over to the 15-minute chart, you can see this was some pretty choppy trading. We were in negative momentum throughout the session, but you can see we tried to recover a few times, but price action did not recover. That's really where I struggled. I'd capture this one move here in the middle where I definitely should have made some money. Definitely could have recouped some of my losses. But in this first move where we moved down in negative momentum, went flat, didn't really get a good rebound on that weakening momentum. And then we sold off from there and I didn't capture that, unfortunately. Similarly, on the NASDAQ, we're in that same vicinity, right at the center line. Certainly potential for a bounce, pretty extended here on this down move. It's worth noting the kind of negative momentum we got to on this previous down move from August. You can see we were significantly more negative to the downside before we did get that eventual bounce. Of course, these moves are not going to be the same, but that gives you a perspective in terms of how much downward price action you can see before the market really gets extended. Moving over to the 5-minute, I actually was trading the NASDAQ here today, but similar price action. We had this first down move, did not capture very much of this, and I was a little bit long going into the day, which certainly did not pay off. I was able to get most of those positions out for not a huge loss, but definitely some losses. Didn't capitalize very much on this run. You can see positive momentum, and I definitely should have made a little bit of money in here. Unfortunately, I did not, and then I missed this midday down move. Very straightforward trade. Had the green bar, 2 negative bars here. And then we got the continuation to full red bar. Absolutely a trade I should have captured, but I just didn't do well there. This is the 5-minute chart, and I do want to highlight the last 20 minutes here. Big time rally, pretty impulsive, to be honest. Got all the way up to the 55 EMA quite quickly. Did sell off a little bit in the pre-market, and then we gapped up here a little bit up to 270. So right at the end of session highs, potentially a little higher here. Looks like we might get a little bit of a retrace tomorrow. We'll see how long lasting that is in the morning. But I do expect a slight move up in the morning, and we'll have to wait and see how long that lasts. Moving over to the Dow, I'm going to swap out the Dow here for the IWM just for today. We'll see how I do this going forward, but I might swap these out every other video or so. You can see the Dow did take out those August highs. The Dow's been quite a bit stronger than the SPY or the NASDAQ. And at this point, we are coming back to retest that resistance that we had here from November, as well as the August highs here. This trend line's been holding up for a while. We did break it. We're now coming into that retest zone. We have to wait and see if this retest holds. And there's potential that this could rally. Certainly tough with the rest of the major indices moving down pretty significantly. You can see on the momentum we were very strong here, and then we faded off pretty significantly. In terms of zones, you can see we're getting into these previous levels of downward momentum, stall out and get a little bit of a rally, at least in that mid move, before we got the continuation. But in terms of the trend, you can see this momentum is certainly moving down. Moving over to the 1-hour chart just to see what that looks like a little bit closer here, you can see move down pretty significantly for 3 days. And we actually did take out the lows here just a little bit, but not very much. So a very small move down here on the Dow compared to the other two. And you can see some divergence actually on the RSI. Similar price action to that previous low, but a little bit stronger RSI. Does kind of look like we're going to get a little bit of a pop here. Moving over to XLK on the hourly chart, you can see this move to the downside is slowing slightly. On the hourly chart, you can see that momentum is almost green, despite the fact that we've been moving down consistently. Again, seems like we might be due for a little bit of a pop, maybe some consolidation before we move down. I would expect a retest of this previous low here, somewhere between 128, 129. Not a lot higher. Of course, this downtrend is still intact, but a little bit of a bounce and then a continuation down would give this more breathing room and give us as traders a potential to re-enter the trade to the downside. Moving over to XOP. Right now, we're just waiting to take out this previous low. Once we get that takeout of the previous low, you should expect this to sell off. You can see today we have all the EMAs back in line on the hourly chart. So we did move down enough to get that done. And then once we take out this previous low, that's going to be a trigger to move significantly lower, in my opinion, here on XOP. Moving over to SPX divided by the M2 money supply. It's worth noting we are right at that support levels that we used here in November, over the lows here on 19 September. We interacted with this price at the low in May, and then as we moved higher. So this is a pretty substantial level here. And like I said, I'm hoping for at least a little bit of a bounce so we can re-enter. At this point, we're just too extended to the downside, and I think we're going to get that reversal. It's getting a little bit tough for me to trade to the downside, so hopefully we get that bounce. Of course, this is on the percent scale, so it's kind of hard to measure here, but back up to the 144 EMA, retest that 9 EMA, which is about a 2 to 2.5% move higher from here. And then I would expect the continuation here to the downside, unless it shows me differently. Moving over to the dollar DXY on the hourly chart. Not a lot going on here. I really expected this to move higher, especially with the markets moving lower today. And this is still in a pretty solid downtrend. We did break that previous downtrend line that I was watching. So there's potential for this to move higher here, but it kind of looks like this move is starting to fade out. Momentum has chopped up and down quite a few times, and it's fading here now to the downside. RSI still ticking up, so this is still mixed, waiting for some direction here on the dollar. Going over to the 4-hour, you can see the momentum is still sliding to the downside. We did have that one green bar of perk on the 12 o'clock candle on the 4-hour. Certainly potential we get over the 55 EMA here on the 4-hour chart, which could push us up to that 144 EMA. But we would have to see that on the momentum. RSI still chopping back and forth, slightly moving higher here. But right now, the dollar looks sideways, and it's not really giving us any clear direction. Kind of what we saw here, actually, at the beginning of December before we saw that bigger sell-off. If this continues to kind of look like we're fading in terms of strength, we do now have a high from Friday and a slightly lower high here today. Continues to break down here. That could actually be good for the up move that I was talking about in stocks. Moving over to JNK just for a moment here, it actually fell off a cliff really hard. So we gapped down really strong all the way down to 90.90 from about 91.85. So pretty big move down. Then we basically went sideways. We tried to bounce a little bit, but could not get above the open of the day. Momentum really strong to the downside here. Still not oversold on the 4-hour here. Jumping over to the 1-hour, you can see really tough to trade. We have strong downward momentum, fades into the afternoon session, strong downward, fades in the afternoon. Basically goes sideways the day, big gap down, sideways. But it's worth noting here on the hourly chart, we are very extended at this point, pretty oversold. And the level that we gapped down to is a fairly significant. Use this as a low. We did use this as a low here on 17 November, and it was the high here on 10 November. So we've interacted with it a few times here. Potential bottoming opportunity or a big gap down. Hopefully we see that move at least slightly to fill this gap sometime in the next few days. Moving over to TLT, similar to JNK, we did gap down, moved down in the morning, and then went sideways basically throughout the day. We're getting dangerously close to having all the EMAs in order here on the hourly chart, which is usually one of those moments when you start to see waterfall sell-offs. Based on this up move, I don't really think we're going to see that kind of a moment here in TLT, but it is worth noting that that looks like it's going to happen potentially in the next day or two on the hourly chart. We did get oversold here on the hour as well today. We did see a slight bounce in the RSI despite going sideways in terms of price action. So that could be an indicator of a slight move higher tomorrow. Really, these markets are pretty hard to trade after you've seen lots of downward movement, pretty oversold, don't really want to be short. The market still seems to be sliding to the downside a little bit. Moving over to the VIX, again, no clear direction. We had a sell off here in the morning on the hourly. Then we bounced and moved higher, but it was still a lower high than the start of day. Momentum is still moving in the positive direction here slightly. RSI did tick up throughout the day after that move down in the morning, but we couldn't get above the 50 line. And we're still looking for some direction here on the VIX. It seems like we're kind of sitting in this no man's land, not moving higher or lower at this point. Moving over to my accounts, you can see pretty rough day today, down just about 1%, maybe 1.1%, which is okay, I guess. The NASDAQ was down about 1.5%, 1.6%. So I didn't sell off quite as much as the NASDAQ, which is my favorite product, but definitely not what you want to see. I had a really strong week last week, and I would prefer to continue with those gains. And hopefully we can make that happen tomorrow. And hopefully we get that up move with some follow through and we can trade that to the upside. It's worth noting here the after hours price action is slightly higher. It's already up at 270.18, which is good for me. I did sell 2 covered calls basically right at the close. My cost basis was 268 and the call is here at 270. So I'm trying to make about $400 on that trade tomorrow morning. That would be perfect. And I really need the market to close above 270 to make that happen. You can see I sold those for $1.22 each. So as long as the market rallies a little bit, I'll make some money on those positions. And if the market keeps rallying and it has some follow through, hopefully I can get a couple of day trades in there as well. Also, if we get some bullish price action, maybe I can trade my IRA. I don't like to short the market in my IRA. It's a little bit tough to do, and it's hard to manage 2 positions to the downside. But if we start to see some bullish price action, I might be able to sell some positions in there. Let me know down in the comments section what charts you want me to look at, and what's your perspective going into tomorrow. Has the market sold off too much and are we due for a bounce, or is this the waterfall moment where we're going to see everything sell off really dramatically and we're going to set in a final solid bottom? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. I'm trying to keep these a little bit shorter during the week so you can get a little bit more precise and concise information. So let me know what you think of that as well. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.